Breaking aviation news.
Good afternoon and welcome to Vertical Aviation News Network. This is your captain speaking. Thank you for joining us on another beautiful flying day here out on our ramp. Today we'll be discussing just aviation safety in general. We're just going to talk about how safe it is still, even though in the legacy media they've been hyper covering everything in aviation every time there's some type of incident. So today we're going to just kind of talk through that aviation is still safe. And if you have questions, you're welcome to type them. And if I see them pop up on the screen, I will answer questions while I discuss during my discussion. And as well, as always, my disclaimer of everything I discuss is speculation, and the official reports are still being gathered by the NTSB, and I only discuss things that have been released to the public by the NTSB. As we all know, that there's been a lot of incidents here recently that the legacy news has been covering, as well as myself. I've covered some of them, and I just want everyone to know aviation is still the safest mode of travel. It is very safe. Yes, we've had some incidents here recently that has been very newsworthy and loss of life, and very tragic in that nature. But in aviation, you have to realize there are thousands of flights every single day around the world operating and having no issues whatsoever, and that's for the most part every day. We have incidents all the time that are minor, that don't get covered, and you don't even know about them. And just now they're starting to become, the news shifted their focus for whatever reason to cover every single little incident that goes on in the aviation world, and that can be due to many things, slow news cycle, politics, all that kind of stuff. So here at Vertical Aviation News Network, we do not do that. We just cover what's happening in aviation and try to give you a real view on the inside from someone that actually operates aircraft, fly aircraft, maintain the aircraft, and things like that. Because a lot of times you'll see legacy media, they have these people that they bring on. They might be a retired pilot or private, consulting firm, or someone's connected to and knows, and then they bring them on and they speculate wildly, and usually don't have any experience in maybe that particular aircraft or that mode of flight and things like that. And Vertical Aviation News Network, we're trying to do a better job of giving you real insight, hands-on expertise on these different things that happen. So as I was saying, we're going to just generally talk about aviation. So if you look at the most recent, most publicized one, was the accident with the collision that the Army helicopter had with the American Eagle flight in Washington, D.C. That drew a lot of attention, mainly because it was here in the United States. Two, it was a accident basically waiting to happen, from what everybody has discussed and gathered. But you also have to look at it from an aspect of pilot experience and, what the pilots actually do in instances, which goes to more so of training. And that's where I say a lot of our incidents are coming from these days. is the training element is not the same and not as rigorous as some of us. I hate to say it, even for myself, would be considered an old timer because, I started out flying over 25 years ago. So, my first helicopter lesson, was when I was a teenager. So it's neat and try to make things easy. Sorry about that. Again, having technical difficulties. I got to tell you, it's quite frustrating when you're doing live broadcasts and for whatever reason, your network just drops out on you. Uh, I would comment on who the service provider is, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to badmouth them, but I tell you, they are terrible. Their data service is not that reliable. But as I was saying, that we were talking about the training element of different things and how it is now, and everybody's push to make everything simpler and easier, and some things you just can't do that. And flying is one of those things. I think you cannot just try to make it easier and less complex, because you start having these problems like we're seeing now. Because in all of these accidents that have recently happened, every one of them, the training element of it has to be looked at, because all of them could have been avoided. Every last one of them. Uh, there hasn't been an accident where it was with the exception of the aircraft that went down in Arizona, in Scottsdale, that we covered, the Lear 35, and probably, I take that back, probably the Lear 55 also, that crashed in Pennsylvania, because we don't have the information on the crash on the Lear 55 medical flight in Pennsylvania. But outside of that, these other incidences, it all comes down to training and proficiency and knowing what to do when you're faced with incidents, faced with emergencies. In particular, like I said, I go back to the helicopter collision in D.C. Um, the flying on NVGs, they should have been, below 200 feet. They should have had another crew chief. The pilot should have been much more aware of their what we call situational awareness, as well as their awareness of where they are and who else is around them. All those things were factors because they just didn't have the training. Even reports have been coming out from various military branches saying that training they just have not been flying like they're supposed to be flying, getting the hours that they need to stay current and things like that. And as well, even on the civilian side, these because there is somewhat of a pilot shortage, and it's going to get worse as more baby boomers start to retire out. You're going to have a shortage of instructors. You're going to have a shortage of actual pilots, and these flight schools are pushing people out as fast as they can with minimal. They're meeting the FAA standard, but the things that are core that's being taught during that time frame is not the same. For instance, I pulled out a paper chart, a sectional, and I was flying with another guy, and we had never flown together before, and this was just a couple of months ago, and I was doing instrument proficiency to make sure I was still proficient, and I whipped out my IFR charts and my VFR sectional, and just kind of going over some stuff, and just being how I was taught. And he's like, "Oh, you don't need those. You can use your iPad or your phone or whatever." It's like, no, I said I like looking at the charts, having them readily available, knowing what's out there, even though this stuff, and doing regular old flight planning. And I noticed that uh, the pilots coming out now, they don't even know how to use a sectional, a paper sectional, or a E6B and things like that. And kind of dating myself a little bit, but I'm just saying that the training component is becoming more of the issue, not aviation in itself and the equipment that, when I say equipment, I mean the aircraft themselves. So, um, and then the same thing with, for instance, the Learjet, Lear 35 that went down in Arizona. That one was a actual malfunction of equipment with the landing gear, and probably would not have been fatal had it not had it not been an aircraft parked in that specific place. The aircraft that was parked, it was in a designated parking place. I'm just saying that, for instance, if that aircraft had been out flying and it wasn't parked there, we probably would not have had a fatality, because the aircraft would have just eventually ran out of momentum and it would have came to rest on the tarmac. Um, um, and that's one of those things that's mechanical, catastrophic failure, unpredictable. But again, those do not happen every day. That was that's just one of those true accidents that probably would have been caught during an inspection, in maintenance, and they just didn't catch it. Um, so, and then with the crash in Korea, the big crash that happened in Korea, the Jeju flight, again, you know, pilot being aware of what was going on, one crucial decision to land in a different direction just because the one end of the runway had an obstruction. If he had just, in the moment took a breather, again, the full report has not been released yet. I am speculating, but just saying from speculation that taking, another 10 seconds, realizing that one end of the runway was obstructed and the winds were going to be on his tail, pushing him faster, uh, probably would have, probably would have, did another turn and came back in from the other direction, from the other landing direction. And again, we would have not had the incident of, of tragedy, as devastating as it was. So, so again, I'm on the camp of training is more of the emphasis that needs to be placed in aviation. Uh, Again, it's still safe. I still say it's the safest mode of travel. Aviation is takes pride in what they do, and try to prevent these things, because we all know from whether you're a mechanic or avionics or pilot or engineer. That being said, we're going to wrap it up. The technical issues, I don't like having to have our broadcast interrupted. And but in general, as I said, aviation is still the safest mode of travel. I highly recommend that you get out and travel the world, enjoy the beautiful sights from above, enjoy the comfort in the flights. It's great. I love it. I wouldn't do anything else in the world. It's great. So moving on to our aircraft of the week, and our aircraft of the week is a 2018 Bell 505 Jet Ranger X. It is out of Queen Creek, Arizona. Uh, Registration number is November 513 Delta Charlie. It has a total of 1,050 flight hours. It is being sold by Steve Lewis. His number is 319-750-2944, and his asking price is $1,645,000 US. wonderful aircraft on the market. And as always, thank you for joining us at Vertical Aviation News Network. This has been your captain speaking. Safe travels.